Today we have Professor Wenshan Cai with us. Professor Cai received his bachelor's and master's degrees from Tsinghua University. He then did his Ph.D. from Purdue University back in 2008. In 2012, he joined the faculty of Georgia Tech as an associate professor and was promoted to full professor in 2021. He was also a postdoctoral fellow at Stanford University. Professor Cai's research interests span the domains of nanophotonic materials and devices. He has had a major impact on the evolving field of plasmonics and metamaterials. He is a highly cited and highly published researcher. He has also had multiple national and international awards under his belt. Let's hear more from him. Our interviewer for today is Yuhang Fang, who is an ME PhD student and also a current NSAC president. Joy, over to you now.
Thanks, Swati, for the introduction. And thank you, Professor Cai, for attending our interview today. We're very honored to have you here. So as a Chinese student, I'm very excited to interview a professor who originally comes from China, grew up in China, accepted education in China, and then came to the US and start your academic career. So it's an amazing journey. It must be. I know you got your bachelor and master both from Tsinghua University, and many audience might not be very familiar with this university, but it's actually the top 2 university in China. I would say it's kind of like the dream school for Chinese parents. So back then, when you were a child, is going to Tsinghua University in your dream?
Not really. And first of all, I would like to thank you and thank NSAC in general for inviting me to be here. It's really an honor. It has been many years. Actually, I have never come back to Purdue or to Birck since I left. So it has been almost 13 years. Time flies, yeah. And as for a Chinese, professors of Chinese origin, it's really an honor to be a Chinese professor here. But I believe we have pretty good representation at least in science and technology nowadays. In Birck, for example, let me think, how many faculty members of Chinese origin there might be? How many? 20? I randomly give up a number. Okay, maybe 20 faculty members. So as for, Tsinghua University, even almost 20 years, okay, since I left, 19 years. I joined Tsinghua in 1995, and I stayed there for 7 years for my bachelor and master degree. That was 2002. Of course, I came to the US and then joined Purdue. Okay. And your question is about my childhood dream. Actually, in that regard, I'm pretty maybe boring person. I don't have many dreams. I don't really dream that I need to accomplish this or that, go to this university, get that job, become whatever. But of course, it's good to be in one of the top universities in China and sooner or later in the world, I would say. So, but I don't think my parents really pushed me or forced me to really excel in my study during my middle school years. Not really. I don't really remember any a very struggling experience during my middle school or high school. No, friendship is natural. Let me put it this way. Yeah.
So what do you visualize yourself might be doing in the future when you were back then?
Back then means when I was in Tsinghua University or even when I was a kid.
Yeah, when you were a kid. You didn't think about going to a dream, a very top school or being a faculty back then, but
who knows
what's
your professor is at that time, right? And scientist? Maybe no, not really. Maybe I dreamed once or twice to be a doctor. I'm not talking about the doctor type. Everyone, audience will sooner or later be a doctor with a last name, but I'm talking about the real doctor, yeah? Okay, so there might be once or twice when I see people, including my maybe family members or my friends' family members, struggle and the past, and that you will have the feeling, well, what if I have the special ability to cure, to save them. So I think every kid might, a couple of times to think about doctor. Again, I'm talking about the real doctor, okay? to be a future profession, but yeah, that really doesn't really impress me too much. And excuse me, should I close this? Okay, yeah. And as for scientists or faculty members, not really, although I did pretty well actually. In my study, I didn't even enter the so-called college entrance exam. I mean, I have no idea how that feeling would be because there are other channels to enter Tsinghua or Beijing University, yeah. I mean, through all those very special, I think, competitions in math or physics, if you become like #1 at the province level, then pretty much like you have the privilege to enter any university or department you want. Yeah, that was the story.
So you basically beat others in math and science, and then you decide to go for it. So when do you start to think about taking science or engineering as a kind of like a lifelong pursuit?
Still, I'm wondering whether this should be my lifelong pursuit because my life still 50% left, I would say.
Well,
roughly,
that's a good thought.
I'm in my early 40s. Let's assume 50% left. And so it's a lifelong pursuit, probably, but really, let me put it this way, I'm not a very purposeful person. I'm not sure whether that's a right word. I mean, I'm not a result-oriented person. So I don't really set my dream that, okay, I should follow that career path. I should be at that particular level by a certain age and so on. I know that I'm not ambitious enough in that regard, that I'm not that type of person. I think for all this academic career, including like Ph.D. study, including like scientific research, even your life, it's like a journey. It's good to really experience what is happening. As for the destination, it's not that important. The results are important, but not that important. And if you only set the result as the eventual goal, for most cases, I would say you would be disappointed because things maybe won't really turn the right way you want. But anyway, it's just my maybe personal attitude. As I mentioned, I'm not a very ambitious person.
Well, that's very deep. It's a very deep understanding of life. So, like back then, when you were in Tsinghua, and like what's your major back then, and
major is double-E. Of course, I mean in Tsinghua University we have two departments. One is called electronic engineering, in Chinese 电子工程. Another one is electrical engineering, 电机工程. Okay, so of course, I mean both. In some Chinese universities or university in Asia, including Hong Kong, Singapore, and so on, you have the triple-E department, electronic and electrical engineering. Yeah, but in the US, it's all like a double-E or ECE. So I was in electronic engineering, and yeah. So, and the reason to join that department, let me think. No particular reason, for example. Really no particular reason, because at that time, I know nowadays, I mean, people might have a different opinion or different preference, but at that time, frankly, if you enter Tsinghua University and then you have the ability or freedom to choose whatever major you want, frankly, there were only three options: electronic engineering, computer science, and biology.
Wow.
Really, I mean, maybe it looks a little bit weird, but if you like consider those who, frankly, I mean, get the top 1 position at the province level during the college entrance exam, or those with IMO or IPHO medals at the international competition, they always go to, I mean, only three options, really. I mean, very few people go to physics or mathematics. And CS is one option, electronic engineering, and biology for some very weird reasons. So I also have to, not have to, but had to, but I would choose one among these three, yeah.
I see. So then you decided to go into
Electronic engineering.
electronic engineering.
It's first you have to decide whether to go to biology or not, because I mean between CS and EE, even for now you know that I mean there's some close relation between CS and EE, right? For EE major you can go to a CS company, but very unlikely you will study vaccine, right? So CS and EE are pretty much like together. For example, I believe for most students in this audience, or at least some students in this audience, you are in electrical and computer engineering. You see, electrical and computer, they are together. Biology is different. Basically, I still think, I mean, either in China or in the US, if you want to consider STEM, science, technology, engineering as your major, then maybe the first choice you need to face is whether go with math plus physics, including EE, including CS, or biology, chemistry, and medicine, right? These are the two branches. And I'm not very good at memorizing all the weird names or terms in chemistry or biology. Okay, I have to confess that. Still, even for now, you know, I have a joint appointment between ECE and MSE. It's still pretty hard for me to teach MSE courses because, you know, I mean, for ECE it's pretty straightforward for me. Okay, if I want, I can start from Maxwell's equation and derive or think about how the flow would be page by page, equation after equation, everything with a reason. And then when I teach material science courses, there's some logic behind that, but really I have to sometimes even open my electronic dictionary and memorize many things. Yeah, I still struggle for now. So that's why between physics, math, CS, engineering, between this branch and that biology plus chemistry plus medicine, that branch I choose the left one, okay? And then only CS versus EE. I didn't have a very strong CS background. For example, I came from the very rural part in China, okay, Inner Mongolia. So not those who has maybe Apple Macintosh at home for many years. So that is why I didn't choose CS. So electrical engineering or electronic engineering was my major, and still my major. Yes.
I see. So you prefer physics than anything else because it's simple and beautiful. I guess that's your answer.
Simple but straightforward, I would say.
Yeah.
It's a reason that you can explain, not completely out of control. Even a virus can be partially out of control, yes. So, yeah, I think so.
So like I can tell that why you really are into physics and like electronics. So what's the most interesting thing to you in your major when you are an undergraduate or when you are doing your master?
Oh, interesting thing. You mean in my coursework or in academics, or it's just college life? It's very different, I would say. Okay, for example, play video games were very interesting, but I don't think I should mention that because it's a part of my college life, but not a part of the study or coursework or anything maybe this audience wants to hear. So, but anyway, in college, I think it's a wonderful time. That's very little pressure. There's some peer pressure, but you know, as I said, I was not, and I'm still not a very ambitious person. I don't think it's very important to prevail over others. So I don't worry too much that there are people much smarter, much better than me in the class. That is fine. I take that. because anyway, I'm well above average, so that is fine. Okay. So yeah, and you meet a lot of friends. They are my lifelong friends, although it has been 20 plus years, but still we talk to each other, communicate on a regular basis, and you learn a lot in college. Get exposed to an entirely different world, not a tiny city in Mongolia, but rather the capital city, and also with a lot of smart people around you. So that's pretty fascinating.
Yeah. So you enjoy your life in Tsinghua, and that you already like you spent 6 to 7 years in that university. And then what motivates you to like thinking about doing a PhD in USA?
What motivated me? Let me think. First, I'm not a very motivated or self-motivated person, really. But it's just follow a pretty natural path. And frankly speaking, at that time, a very natural path would be to pursue like graduate education elsewhere. I mean, in the United States or in the United Kingdom. And so why I stay in Tsinghua for 7 years? Now it appears to be pretty long, but actually at that time, people consider me and my classmates to be like on the fast track. Maybe, I mean, you are too young to understand that. So at that time, the undergrad study at Tsinghua University was 5 years, and the master was 3 years. So you need to take the 8 years to go from the beginning to the point that you get a master degree. Okay, 8 years, 5 plus 3. And then they had the transition. They chose some student that looks good with relatively good academic standing and GPA, so that they told us, okay, you can be on the faster track that you can finish everything within 7 years. Yeah, so 7 years. So that's why that's really, I mean, no need to tell, okay, you finish my bachelor degree and then it's a time for your grad study. No, it's just 7 years. And then I got 2 degrees simultaneously, both a bachelor and a master degree. And whether that was a smart decision or not, it's hard to tell because those 2 years, medicine has changed. I have classmates who came to the US just after the 5-year undergrad study. That year was the year 2000. Okay. And then I have many classmates that stayed at Tsinghua for 7 years and then came to the US in 2012. And things were very, very different. But 2 major events. One was the dot bubble. I'm not sure whether you have heard of that. Okay, you know, the year 2000 pretty much like it was the peak of, if you look back, almost the peak of US influence and economy. Okay, and so if you look at like the NSAC, the stock market and so on, it's really skyrocketing. And then suddenly the bubble bursted. I think that was the year, the end of 2000 or 2001. And then another major event in 2001 was, of course, 9/11 terrorist attack. So the year 2000 and the year 2012 were very different. Okay, and then when you go out for grad study in the United States, these 2 events also had a major influence on which major we should choose and so on. I'm not sure whether you want me to continue this type of discussion or not, but just to expand this topic. So any other question, or I should just continue to elaborate why I chose this particular major or research topic or this school and so on?
I see you're following the flow of the host society and also the environment of a certain country, and then you decide what you're gonna go for. I guess is that?
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty natural for me to come to the United States, I would say. I mean, because either you like find a job in China, or go to the United States. Okay, these are only two options. And then to get a job in China, there were, two options. One is go to the industry, another one is stay in the university. But what if you want to stay in the university, you need a PhD degree. Then I would rather get a PhD degree in the US, okay? Because at that time, 20 years ago, or almost 20 years ago, the research or education level in the US was much, much better than those in China, okay? So, and the job market, I didn't try, but I heard the job market was not very good. That time, because of the burst of a dot bubble, okay? That's also the reason why I consider, and eventually I joined Purdue, joined the Blood Shalev's group, which I learned a lot, of course, we can come to that point later. But why I became almost applied physicist rather than a real electrical engineer that build circuit, build networks, and so on. The reason really was the burst of the dot bubble. That is, if you look back at the year 2000 or 2001, the best companies in EE in the world were like Lucent Technology, Bell Lab, like Nortel. These days, maybe you have never heard of such companies because they disappeared. Okay, and I was specialized during my master degree. Okay, in Tsinghua University, I was specialized in optical engineering or optical communications, like optical fiber communications, wavelengths, multiplexing networks, and so on. If you want to look at my publication list, the very first ones published back when I was a grad student in Tsinghua University were all about like optical communications. However, when I applied to grad school, again, that was the end of 2001, after 9/11, after the burst of the dot bubble. Basically, there were almost no grad student opening in research groups like specialized in optical communications or fibers for very obvious reasons, okay? So that is why, including me and those with a similar background as me, we have to choose a different, not a different major, but at least a different focus. Not communication anymore, but rather something more fundamental. That is why of course, I'm in ECE department, but I would like focus more on like physics and applied physics, and still like that. Okay, and if you consider, I'm a professor now in electrical and computer engineering, but do I really produce anything that can plug into the power socket and then which is fully functional? The answer is no. Okay, I still consider myself as an applied physicist, and that was pretty much like determined at the very beginning, yeah, because of the bubble burst, and so on. Yeah, it's a long story.
So you came to Purdue naturally, and then you start working on some
I'm not saying that I came to Purdue naturally. I would say I came to the United States pretty naturally because
I see.
If I were to stay in academia or in universities, then the only route pretty much is to come to the US, get a degree, get better education, better training.
I see. So then you were in Purdue, and what you were working on back then?
Oh, working on, you know that my boss, okay, my advisor was Blood Shalev, okay, so of course, I mean, I work on his research field, okay, at that time it's just about optics, okay, applied optics, I think, like including spectroscopy, including like matter interaction and so on, and but lucky enough, at that time there were it's an emerging topic. Now it's a very standard topic in photonics. It's called metamaterials. Okay, man-made structures with very special properties. But at that time, it was a brand new research field. Okay, very few people know the meaning. Very few people know the potential. And lucky enough, I was let me say this, I was the first generation of students who were specialized in metamaterials or nanophotonics in general, okay? Because that field was developed, I would say, starting from the beginning of this century, okay? And so I learned a lot. Yeah, I stayed in Purdue for almost 6 years, from 2002 to 2008. At the very beginning, it's maybe double E building. I believe double E building is still there. There's a double E building, and then next to that, it's along the, it's called, that street in Northwestern Street, I think, or Northwest Street. And there's double E building and the MSE building. So I stayed in those two buildings for maybe 4 years. So now you are now at Birck, and I think Birck was established in 2005, and our group, Shalef's group, moved into Birck. I think that was 2006. Yeah, pretty long story.
I see. So you spent around 6 years working in Purdue, and I believe that's a very huge project to work on. I believe there will be some up and downs. So is there anything that you are very proud of during your journey in Purdue?
So a lot of things to be, proud of, I think. But anyway, whether proud of or not, but anyway, I like my work at Purdue. I learned a lot, and as I said, I was lucky enough to get involved in a very new field at that time. So there's a lot of uncertainties, a lot of unknowns for us to explore. And then ups and downs. There must be, but I don't really feel that way. Again, as I said, I was not very ambitious and I'm not result oriented. And so that's why I don't really feel very anxious or even nervous if there's no good result.
I see.
The result, so what? I for example, or not a role model, but let me tell you the truth, which can be, you can see that from my even publication list or CV that I didn't publish a single paper, including even course papers, in my first 3 years at Purdue. From 2012 to 2005, or 2002 to 2005, you can see it's completely different. It appears that I was not staying in academia at all. Like, why? Was I worrying about this thing? Frankly, no. Of course, I was really grateful for all the support from Shalef and also all the group members of the group, because with all their help, I didn't really feel too much pressure. Okay, and I know everything should be all right. So, yeah, as I said, I really ups and downs too much.
That's a great piece in your mind. I guess there are many of us who haven't get published in the first 2 or even the 3rd years. They get anxious. They don't know where they're going.
I got my first publication, co-author or first author, doesn't really matter. I got my name in a paper at Purdue in my 4th year.
Wow, that's encouraging.
Pretty slow, right?
But it's nice that you still enjoy the whole process and you're not anxious about future. Well, that I guess that's the best benefit of having a personality, of just seeing things growing slowly and naturally.
Yeah, you can say that, because I'm as I said, I'm not a very purposeful person. I enjoy the process. As for the result, I hope that come as natural. I don't think someone. I know there are really good, ambitious person that has a completely different mindset, which I admire them, but I can't really follow. Okay, I know there are people that talk to themselves that I should be the president someday. I know, but 99.99% of them will be disappointed because they will fail, for sure, right? Almost 100% chance that they will fail. So what? You consider yourself as a loser? No, don't be too purposeful. At least it's just like I don't feel result to be too important. I mean, even later part of my academic career, like job counting, like tenure, like promotion, these, of course, I mean, you need the result, but do you really set that result as your goal or objective? Maybe no, maybe really no.
I see. I was just planning to ask, like, you have your own speed in developing your career or just doing something you like, but the job market have their expectations. So there might be some of your peers, they work hard and achieve things in a short time. And then when you go to the job market, you need to compare with them and compete with them. So, like,
Yes,
do you think going away like you do give you some like frustrations or borders that coming from the peers who are running faster than you?
I
Like, I mean, in terms of age, not accomplishment.
probably, but then what? There are people better than me. There are a lot of people slower than me,
Well,
and
good.
then for the job market, I mean, certainly you are not going to get the best possible job, but still, I always consider that for the overall quality or luck or whatsoever, I mean, well above average, that's good enough for me. Again, I'm not that ambitious, and
I see.
yeah,
So you enjoy your work in Purdue, and I believe that's a very nice and enjoyable experience. And then you decide to do a postdoc at Stanford.
Mhm.
Like from your resume, that's another 4 years. It's kind
That's
of a long.
like 3 years. I mean, it's yeah. Let me see. Yeah, I left Purdue at 2008, and then I stayed there for 2 years, and then when I went on the job market, that was 2011, and then I delayed my start date by a year because I want to finish some ongoing project at that time at Stanford. That's why I started a year later, that 2012. Yeah.
I see. So it seems like you value more about completing a project than entering a job market or get faculty job.
Yeah, faculty job is again. I mean, I have to say it's not that hard. At least, I mean, I know statistically it looks a little bit hard because I mean, maybe according to the recent statistics from NSAC or from Nature journal, it's like maybe 3% to 5% of a PhD can eventually land a faculty job, which looks a little bit scary, but no, it's not that scary. I mean, faculty jobs. In the year 2008, of course, I mean, I joined Mark Brindersma's group at Stanford, and again, I was a very slow paced learner,
I see.
because I don't really publish anything from Mark Brindersma's group for the first a year and a half, I think. Okay, and but everything will be turned out not bad, I would say. I was confident enough that I can get a faculty position, really no problem. Let me just put some numbers in the context. And eventually I decided to go to the faculty job market. That was end of 2010. Yes, yeah, the end of 2010, maybe November, December of 2010. And then I prepared a package. At that time, I mean, before that, I didn't even consider to apply for any faculty positions. I never tried. And then I applied to about 20 positions. I got more than 15 or 16 on-site invitations. And I turned down half of them. I went to 7 or 8. I received 6 offers, I think. But anyway, it's not that hard. And I didn't really set a particular goal that I have to achieve that by that age. But things turned out not that bad, I would say.
Yeah, actually it turns out great. So it means like even though you think like you're moving slowly, but your like your achievements or your published results are still appreciated by the community. They think you are doing a great job. So what do you think is the most important or characteristic in you that helps you to do such great job in research?
First, I mean, it's hard to tell whether I did a great job in research. As a student or postdoc, maybe yes. When I build my own group, always like students and postdocs are those who do all the real work, yeah, and it's completely different mindset and the skill set that you need. So I think I was lucky, pretty lucky that I got into a very good field at that time. So, there are always like important momentum of the entire field that almost all the accomplished person in the field will sooner or later become stars in the field, and then they all land good positions in academia if they want. Okay, not all, but a good number of them. So in that regard, I was lucky. And also I got the support from many people, of course, including many people still in the Birck building, I think. So that is like the cycle of academia, that you get results and help from other people, and then you have your own academic kids that you help them. For example, my first student is now a faculty member at Texas A&M. Okay, so it's really gratifying that now I have my own academic kid that can become a professor at another university. It looks good. That means that I'm keeping this cycle of life in the right positive way.
Yeah, they're growing.
Yeah.
So you start your career as a real faculty, and it's just based on our conversation. I feel like you kind of enjoy our not that fast speed of life, but as people always think that doing an assistant professor is an extremely challenging job, and they have very busy schedules. So is doing a faculty or being a faculty feel the same as you expected back then?
It's hard for those who want to be a faculty member or pursue an academic job. I want to share with you, like, you can never be well prepared for this job, okay? And I was not prepared because it's almost impossible for me to prepare for that. For faculty jobs, there are three major components, okay? Research, teaching, and service. Yeah, research, teaching, and service. And then, how can you prepare yourself for any of these three components? Research. Well, as a student or postdoc, for those who want to enter the job market in academia, you might feel, okay, I'm very good at research. But the research for faculty member is different from a research for PhD and postdoc, because for faculty members, research doesn't mean that you stay in the lab around the clock and get the best possible result you want. Research, to a large extent, means how to get the resources. For example, funding applications, for example, try to build your network, collaboration network, and so on to get the job done. It's not something that you can get well trained before you are a real faculty member. Yeah, teaching. Some people are good at teaching, maybe, but I have never worked as a teaching assistant, so it's pretty hard for me to teach. I'm fine, but anyway, I was not well trained for that. Service, of course, no training at all. I know that for some students, including you, okay, now you are serving important role for this NSAC. That's a good learning experience, but it's very different still from the service as faculty members that you get involved in so many committees, groups, boards, and so on. So that's very different. Yeah, I still like the job, okay, although sometimes it's a little bit frustrating when you are not well prepared or when things are not going that way you want. But anyway, it's a good learning experience, and I enjoy it, really.
Yeah. you just mentioned like the one part of the faculty job is to reaching out to funding resources. That means we like faculties need to prepare a lot of research proposals. So basically you need new ideas all the time. Do those new ideas always naturally come to your mind?
Let me say, relatively natural. Why relatively natural means, in for funding applications, there are two types. There are many different ways to classify different funding types. For example, from DoD or DOE or NSF, or it's like from industry or federal agencies and so on. But typically, when I apply for funding, I don't write too many proposals, but just a good, barely enough for me to get the funding to make my group sustainable. That's good enough. Again, I'm not a very ambitious person, you know this. And for funding application, there are two types. For me, I always consider two types. One is unsolicited. Okay, that means you have the freedom to propose anything you want. Okay, maybe within a large category, but you have the freedom to propose any topic. Okay, many like NSF core programs fall into this category. I like them. Okay, and there are other like funding calls with a very clear topic, very clear topic. Okay, long description that they want this, they want that. For example, try to build an optical modulator that give you that speed with that low power consumption, with that small footprint and so on. I never applied to those. Okay, so that is why you asked, okay, whether those ideas were pretty natural or not. Pretty natural for me because I never force myself to compete for the opportunities that I'm not good at. Okay, those funding calls with very specialized, very clearly outlined goals, tasks, and so on. Not for me.
Are those brilliant ideas just come from like you're regularly reading new papers, attending conference, or they come from some cross-discipline things that maybe you talk to a person and then something just come to you?
Oh, that's a very good question, and one of the most gratifying moment as a faculty member. To tell the truth, most ideas come during my random discussion interaction with my own student. Okay, we have meetings, we have individual meetings. It's pretty casual, and they can propose anything they want. We can do brainstorming together, and many crazy, sometimes ridiculous ideas would come up, and then we thought through all those ideas. Because mostly being very crazy and ridiculous, that also means very new, right? And then we thought them through, try to first build the connection between our ongoing project and those ideas. And second, of course, most importantly, to rule out or write off those ideas that won't work. And then, based on additional study, collection of preliminary data, and so on, we finally shape the idea into a solid proposal, and then we can just try that with pretty good success rate, I would say, because maybe success rate is pretty high, maybe because I don't really write too many proposals, maybe only 3 or 4 every year.
So there, like you just mentioned, there are many crazy ideas. So how many of those crazy ideas after your evaluation finally comes into a solid proposal that people can achieve it?
Actually, you ask 2 questions, not just 1 question. You ask how many of them or what percentage eventually can be solid enough so that we can use that for proposal. And then the second question that you briefly mentioned is that people can achieve them. These are 2 different things, okay? The ideas, maybe 20–30% of the ideas that we randomly propose during brainstorming eventually can more or less after certain modification can enter our proposal. And for the proposal ideas, even we put into proposal or even get funded, maybe 50% eventually turn out to be doable or successful. Because fundamental research is not something that can be well planned, pretty much like life. Okay, there are certain directions that you can pursue. For example, you might want to work harder in the lab. For example, even in everyday life, you want to maybe eat less junk food to stay healthier and fit. So these are good directions that I really like. I follow certain directions and then enjoy the process, but I don't set goals. For example, I have to lose 20 pounds in the next 2 weeks, otherwise I'm a loser. No, you are punishing yourself. Okay.
Well,
so in that regard, this scientific research is like there are certain directions. Whether or not you can achieve that is a different story, because scientific research, especially fundamental research, it's not like product development that must be a very good success rate. No, for scientific research, you are exploring the uncertainty. There are good directions that are worth exploring, but whether or not that turn out the right way, who knows? As long as you are honest, not wasting taxpayers' money, you are not wasting students' time, that's good enough. I mean, natural result is a result.
it seems easy to see that avoid eating junk food or working hard in lab are good or right directions. But in terms of research, whether something is a good direction to go, that might be more difficult. So like you said, like 20% of the crazy ideas turns into proposal, and then only half of them might be finally be achieved. So there are many pitfalls that you might fall into or you avoid. How do you like learn from all this experience?
Okay, again, as I said, I mean, research is not completely predictable. That is why I think it's pretty natural that sometimes you work very hard on something that doesn't turn out not to be feasible or sometimes even wrong. It's just the nature of the research. Okay. Again, it's like, as I said, I'm not purposeful. That is why I feel natural. I feel natural, and I don't really feel pressed. Whether my student or postdoc will feel the same, it's hard because you can teach or influence a person or how to do particular research topic or teach these technical things, but as for personality or mindset, it's really hard to, and I shouldn't change. And it's really hard for me to have an influence on that. But anyway, as I said, I more pretty slow at the beginning. I mean, for example, no publication in the first 3 years as a Ph.D. student, no external funding for almost 3 years as a faculty member. Yeah, it's almost like unimaginable, but I can survive. Maybe just luck. I'm not sure.
As people said, the biggest enemy are ourselves. Like maybe people get frustrated and then they give up. They do not keep the good work or making efforts. Maybe it's not the difficulty really turned them down. It's the giving up that really turned them down. I guess we are approaching the end of the interview. Let's see if there are some questions from the audience. So yeah, while we are waiting for the questions, so I feel like most of the faculties teachers. So we can tell that they make a lot of efforts to survive, struggle, or strike their goals. But you really think the other way. You work hard and then see things happening just naturally.
Maybe not the very good attitude to be a superstar or for any extremely ambitious person who want to be the best possible scientist in the field. But anyway, that worked for me. And it's just my personal opinion and personal experience that I want to share with the student and with this audience.
I see. So we got one question from the audience, and the audience are still curious about how you deal with your failures or setbacks.
If we consider the very small failures, for example, you get a paper or proposal rejected, come on, that's natural, right? It's just part of the academic life. Okay, just to try again. And then what type of failure you are talking about? Let me think. Failure.
I guess it's more general.
Yeah, it's a little too general. I mean, frankly, I don't think I failed badly in anything in academia. I mean, maybe not fast enough, but I didn't fail. I like this academic life at my own pace. And the small step failure, I mean, that's pretty natural. It's everyday life. As I said, okay, you have a rejection from an editor or from a program manager. Come on, that's pretty common. Think about yourself as if you are a professional athlete. Okay, of course, on average, statistically, you 50% chance you win, 50% chance you lose. So what?
I see. I guess the audience is also asking, like, some people motivate themselves through the setbacks or failures because they have a goal they would like to achieve. And it seems like you do not have a real solid goal in your mind. And then what motivates you to go through those bad times?
First, at least I think in academia, in my academic life, I don't feel I have particular bad times. I don't consider the very small things as a rejected proposal or paper as a very bad thing. Okay, maybe if you fail the job application throughout a season or you fail the annual evaluation, that can be considered as a bad thing, but I'm far from that, fortunately. So as for the setbacks or failures in research, as I said, it's just a natural part of the research. So I don't really consider that as failure. Again, sometimes I even report negative result from my experiment to make sure that other people in the community won't. Well, there's no need to waste time working on the same thing. Yeah, okay, because this path, although at the beginning looks promising, eventually we tried, we invested our time and money, and it appears to be a dead end. Okay, and we report that, no problem. So,
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much, Professor. I think we really learned a lot from your experience. Basically, take everything as it is and try our best and see where it sends us to be. Yeah. And yeah, I think since there are no more questions from the audience, we may close this conversation. So again, we really appreciate your time, and it's really nice to hear your stories and how you managed to go to your academic position. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, and thanks again for having me in this wonderful event. And it really has been a pleasure. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, thank you, Professor. Bye.